So yes, these live reaction videos are never done with the intent to tear anyone down, even though I'm sure many people still think I'm being a jerk. In these types of videos, we see if we agree, disagree, and what I can add to the conversation to further help people get better at guitar. Is this coattail riding and clout chasing? Absolutely. If doing this helps me reach more people and grow the channel, damn it, I'm going to do it. That being said, so I have not watched this person's video yet. Who is this by? It is by Matt Wright Music. 16.4 thousand subscribers so far on his channel, so he's doing better than me, for sure. I have seen very little of this specific video, but I did notice this when I went on to it. Joe! Hello, Joe. Good to see you. And, of course, I'm greeted with this thing. Any use of these methods or materials including copying, reproduction, redistribution, teaching, adaptation, creation of derivative works, or use in videos, courses, or AI training is strictly prohibited without prior written permission. Well, shit. So one last thing to share before we get into this. Fair use. So I did Plastidon. Hello there. So I did look this up, confirmation, just to make sure I'm not, getting in too much trouble here. Because did I ask for permission to do this? No. I am more of a do first, ask forgiveness later on this kind of thing. I have no issues if somebody wants to do reactions to me. In fact, it would be good publicity, promotion for both people. If I had one guy do response reaction to one of my things a long time ago, and of course it's always weird when you come across somebody talking about you, and he wasn't like overly negative or anything, but it's just like, whoa, this is really weird. But I'm sure the more it happens, less of a problem it is. However, basically, yes, fair use. I am not just playing this guy's stuff. I am going to absolutely be adding commentary to this. So yes, common examples of fair use include the works of commentary, criticism, research, teaching, news reporting, which is basically what this is about. So I'm not going to be just running my mouth, talking trash. With all that being said, the title of this video is How to Practice Guitar for Speed, Neuroscience based. And the thumbnail of the video says, Stop increasing metronome speed. Now, if you know me, I am all about pushing the metronome. All about pushing that metronome speed. So, of course, what? What the hell do you mean, stop pushing the metronome speed? Well, let's find out. Let's see what we agree on. Let's see what we disagree on. Let's see what we can all learn. And there we go. All the disclaimer crap out of the way. Let's see what this is about.
Have you ever noticed that whether you practice slow or you practice fast, it always feels like you hit a wall that you can never really pass, no matter what you do?
I guess that depends on the person. And yes, that can certainly happen with some people. But no matter what you do, I'm already questioning that. I mean, well, we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, maybe I shouldn't add too much stuff. We got to hear what he has to say. Let me stop interrupting so fast.
Yet the only answers you get from teachers online and videos are practice slow again, or practice faster and it'll work itself out, or just try harder, or relax.
All right, he makes some good points there. Makes some good points. I want to go through those because now we're getting somewhere. See, I shouldn't have interrupted so fast.
No matter what you do. Yet the only answers you get from teachers online and videos are practice slow again.
Depending on the circumstance, that could work, but it doesn't always solve the problem. If you're making a ton of mistakes at whatever speed you're trying to play at, I could see value in slowing down to make sure you're playing it right. But continuing on.
Or practice faster and it'll... work itself out. Or
Practice faster and it'll work itself out. That's absolute bullshit. No. Just throwing yourself at it faster, hoping it will magically be okay. Like, no. Every now and then, and I do talk about this in my free ebook, Metronome Method, where like you try playing at a speed you know you can't play whatever it is you're trying to get up to speed, and you purposely slop it, but you do that very sparingly. But the idea is to kind of kickstart your system into like, hey, I'm trying to go this fast. And then you slow it back down to a level you can play it, and then gradually start pushing it back up again. So, yeah, the idea of just practice faster and it'll just work itself out. I'm assuming he's going to say that's crap, and I agree with that.
just try harder, or
just try harder. Some people need to just try harder, to be fair. Now, there are some people that are already trying really damn hard. Really damn hard. So, for those people that are already busting their butts and giving it everything they got, then, that's not for them. But some people, and yes, some students I've worked with, I just got the feeling like they're not pushing themselves hard enough. Like, they're really going to get, want to go faster. But they're, just like hemming and hawing, just like barely moving their fingers. Like, yeah. Like, nope, didn't get it. Nope, didn't get it. It's like, come on, put in some effort. Get mean with that damn thing. Go for it. You gotta really get aggressive if you want to play stupidly fast. You have to get aggressive with it, for sure. So some people, yes, some people do need to really push themselves harder, but that's not always the answer. Okay.
relax.
The relax. Yes, that one. I hear that shit all the time. Sometimes relaxing it depends. It depends on the situation again. Because, I'm assuming he means, relax as in, you need to get rid of all tension. And I hear that. I've heard that many times. I have tension when I do this. It's okay, well, what kind of tension? Do you feel fatigue setting in when you start to play? That's part of the process. You have to push yourself to points of discomfort when you're trying to gain speed, increase your speed, increase endurance, because you cannot grow when you're comfortable. So if you're all relaxed the entire time that you're playing, well, you're not going to increase your limits. You're not going to break past your limits. So there's unnecessary tension, if you're just freaked out constantly, so much anxiety when you're playing, and just trying to muscle the ever living shit out of everything to the point you're just a complete mess. Well, then yeah, you need to relax somewhat, but there's the controlled tension kind of thing, Anyway, we're never gonna finish this video. We only got, what is this, less than 50 minutes left of streaming. We're not even a minute into this guy's video, and it's a 30-minute video.
All those kinds of things. And none of it makes an actual dent in your progress. And that's because the truth is that it doesn't matter whether you practice slow or you practice fast. The key to breaking speed barriers lies in how you progress from slow to fast. Mess up the order and you'll be wiring your brain in such a way that you'll never play fast. So in this video, we're going to go over how to wire your brain properly so that playing fast becomes easy and consistent. We're going to end the slow practice versus fast practice debate with modern neuroscience and practical application. This video is the first in a series of 3 that I'm calling the 3 pillars of speed, and they all go together. This video is about how to practice for speed. Video 2 will be all about how your brain...
I'm going to put this on 1.5 speed. I'll change it back when it seems like a good idea. I do like what he said there, how you practice. How you practice going from slow to fast is important. I agree with that. Let's see what he says.
informs your picking motion, and video 3 will be about increasing what I call your raw speed. And over these next 3 videos, we're going to absolutely bury these unscientific and ineffective methods of teaching speed and practice on guitar. So I need to stress that all these videos go together. There will be questions that are not answered in this video that are answered in the second video, and so on. Each of my videos is meticulously scripted, researched, read, and reread before filming, and I've done my best to make these for you. I'm even filming in 4K today, so pray the cameras don't overheat and die. So,
his production value is way better than mine, absolutely.
Press for me and hit the subscribe button so you can watch every video in the series. By the way, I also just moved over all my stuff to Patreon, so if you want some extra lessons, bonus stuff, behind the scenes, just did a video about my experience at NAMM and how to make the most of it, you can go to the link in the description and sign up for Patreon. That helps me a lot. So if you're new here, my name's Matt, and I grew up on classical string bass, and then I switched to French horn in 10th grade, and I went on to graduate from the University of Cincinnati with a degree in French horn. But I've always had a passion for metal music, and in 2018, at the very late age of 22, I finally got to start playing guitar when my older brother gifted me a very low-quality guitar, but I had a lot of fun with it. Inspired by the music of Dream Theater and Symphony X.
I mean, look at that. He's got multiple camera angles. I just got one, and shitty lighting. Tristan, you're off to do some housework. It's listening to headphones. All right, very good. I will announce when it's time for more questions. Or time for questions, anyway, or at least when we're done here, or wrapping things up. All right, here we go.
I had a lot of catching up to do. So like you, I started watching YouTube videos to try to learn, but I was really frustrated and confused with all of the conflicting answers. So
yeah, one thing I hear a lot. Conflicting answers. That is definitely a problem out there.
In 2021, I finally started getting lessons, and I've collectively paid over $10,000 to go to camps, do lessons, masterclasses, and study with a lot of world-class guitar players looking for these answers. And some of these people don't even give lessons anymore. So I've learned a lot from those guys, and I give them all the credit in the world for the player that I am today, seriously. But there were still a lot of questions that I didn't have answers for. So that's when I started looking not in the guitar community, and I started applying neuroscience to my guitar, and my practice and progress absolutely skyrocketed. Now, I'm sharing all that stuff here in this YouTube channel. Before we get into the science, I need to lay down a few ground rules. First, what is practice? I see a ton of people out there who spend many more hours on guitar a day than me, yet they make little progress. And this is because they're merely playing. Practice.
Ah, neat. Professional streamer. Shit. I guess technically I am because I have made some money off of this. Yeah, I think he's about to say a very similar thing to what I say. Practice versus playing. So when I think about practicing, to me, I'm more like training. I am trying to train myself to be better. Like I am practicing with a very specific purpose to get better at something, to get faster at something, to learn a new piece of music that's kicking my butt, things like that. But yes, just playing guitar, playing things that you're already, good at, just playing for fun, not really the same thing as practice, So it's like kind of like, what type of practice are you doing? I'm assuming he's about to talk about that.
Practice is defined as the repeated performance of a skill or task with the goal of improving proficiency, efficiency, and accuracy. So it doesn't matter if you play for 10,000 hours if you've never practiced for one. Playing has an important role.
Agreed.
In order to truly improve your skills, you don't just need time on the instrument. You need to practice deliberately. The way that most people practice is slowly, with metronome. However, there's rarely a structured approach provided for transitioning from slow practice to actually performing music. And as a result, many players only partially learn a piece before trying to move to a faster tempo, hoping that any errors that they had will resolve naturally.
Well, if you use the metronome method, that will solve that problem. At least a lot of it. Not guaranteed. It depends on if you follow it the right way. There's nuance there. Nuance. But yeah, agreed. Playing slow, only practicing slow, thinking you're suddenly going to be fast. Why do people think that? That's silly. That's like people thinking they're going to improve at sprinting by walking a lot. Nope. Doesn't work that way. Are you going to be really strong at the bench press by, only lifting 10-pound dumbbells? And then suddenly, bam, you can bench press 500 pounds. No, doesn't work like that.
And sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't. Repeating a flawed performance only reinforces incorrect neural patterns, which will not only impair the ability to perform accurately at speed, but it also leads to unreliable and inconsistent results.
I want to go back and listen to that one again, and I'm going to go back to normal speed because that's very important, and that's something that I talk about a lot.
Now, the idea of speed forces incorrect, but a lot of the times they don't. Repeating a flawed performance only reinforces incorrect neural patterns.
Flawed performance. Practicing a flawed performance, basically he's saying that if you practice it with a bunch of errors and mistakes, you're just getting good at playing with a bunch of errors and mistakes, which is why I constantly say practice does not make perfect, only perfect practice makes perfect. And I can't remember the other channel that talked about it, was said practice makes permanent, which is why perfect practice makes perfect. So yeah, that's why I'm always really, really strict with students. Like, whenever you make a mistake when you're practicing, stop immediately and fix that mistake. You need to fix it right away. If you know you made a mistake, don't just keep going on with the take. You got to fix it right away. Mistakes happen, it's part of the process, but you need to address it immediately if you want to improve in the fastest amount of time possible. And that's one of the things I still have to repeat with a lot of people still, is like, did you know you made a mistake there? They'll say yes. I said, what have I told you to do in this situation? Like, I'm supposed to stop. Like, that's right. And then people say, oh, well, I think I'm still getting something out of it by continuing on. It's like, no, don't think that way. You have to practice as if you are recording. Old school, analog, where you can't just digitally alter the shit out of everything. Practice like you are recording the good old cassette tape, 8-track, whatever, 4-track. It's like, that's it. That's your one take. Make it sound great. Make it sound good. Yeah, so 100% agree with him here. Flawed practice is not going to result in you improving. You have to practice perfect in order to make progress. Don't allow mistakes to sit. Mistakes happen, but correct them. You got to correct them.
Which will not only impair the ability to perform accurately at speed, but it also leads to unreliable and inconsistent results.
100% agree.
Now, the idea of slow practice has been promoted since as early as the 1550s with the idea that, well, if you can't play it slow, you can't play it fast. But modern neuroscience is showing us that that really isn't the full picture. Having come up in the classical world, I had my mind absolutely blown away when I listened to Dr. Jason Sullivan's interview on the Bulletproof Musician podcast on why fast at-tempo practice can be more effective than slow practice.
When we slow things down, we allot for extra time to do so. So it might not create a method that works at the goal tempo. And so sometimes people can reach a ceiling where if you got...
That was going a little bit too fast, I think. Hey, he's using somebody else's stuff in his video too, so look at that. Fair use, right?
You practice it at 50 beats a minute in the tempo. A lot for extra time.
Practice can be more effective than slow practice.
When we slow things down, we allot for extra time to do so. So it might not create a method that works at the goal tempo. And so sometimes people can reach a ceiling where if you got to play it at 100 beats a minute, you practice it at 50 beats a minute, and you get really good at 50 and 60 and 70, and then all of a sudden you just can't get over 75 beats a minute because the way in which you learned, from an embouchure or motor standpoint, it just can't get the job done any faster. So you essentially have to retrain yourself how to do it, and that can be a frustrating process.
Or maybe so
I'm curious how that's going to get addressed, because, as I talk about going 50 to 60 to 70, and then... we talk about can't get over 75. There's ways of breaking things down in order to make more progress with it. Now, the instrument that guy was holding there, I don't know how that would apply the same way as guitar. I'd imagine it's a fairly similar approach. But instead of going up in 10s, go up in 5s. Instead of going up in 5s, go up in 1s. If you're trying to build up 16th notes, stop doing 16th notes, do 8th notes instead. Because, yes, mechanics change as you go faster and faster, but, if you focus on making it sound correct at every step of the way and allow your body to do what it needs to or wants to do in order to go faster, you're going to have results. So, anyway, let's continue.
Saw Troy Grady's video. Don't work up to picking speed, start with it.
Hey,
both
I know
of these
him.
sources advocate for playing fast right away. However, if you take a deeper look, both of these sources actually ignore that if you don't already have really great mechanics, just practicing fast will do nothing to actually help solve mechanical issues. And this is something we're going to get very deep into in video 2 with how the brain forms your picking movement. The problem is that if you don't have the total level of skill to overcome the volume of errors you're going to be hitting, you can't optimize anything. And if you've tried fast practice, you've probably experienced this. By the way, the best picking motion is the topic of the next video in the series, so make sure you subscribe for that. So, after all this research, I was really frustrated by the contradictions between...
I'm curious what he's going to say in the next video, what the best picking motion is. Best for what? Because, yeah, that one, I'm like, yeah, best for what? Best for who? Because I don't feel like that's a universal thing. To me, that's like saying what the best squat stance is. The best squat stance is going to be different for everybody. Limb length has a big part of that. How tall you are, how your joints are, you know, so picking motion is going to be a little bit different from person to person. One of my students, another guy who's not on the stream right now, he's extremely advanced in his playing. He's been playing a long time. He came to me to kind of get some things brushed up, and yeah, he's just flying around the fretboard big time. And he doesn't do exactly what I do, like the whole, you know, what is it, upward pick slant, downward pick escape kind of thing when I'm going really, really fast. He still manages to have, like, you know, a bit of a angle to the pick, a bit of a downward slant, and, you know, he's still able to get the arm going really fast like I do. Maybe not to the same extent, but pretty damn close. But so he's using a lot of arm just like I do, but it's not, you know, holding the pick the exact same way. So I don't know. We'll might come back to you know, video number 2, and then yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, best picking. Best way to pick. Those kinds of things I'm very skeptical about.
Slow down, which has been promoted for so long, and speed up, which seems to be the hot new thing. But when I tried it, it doesn't really connect, right? So I began to wonder, what if both approaches are missing something? It turned out I was right. A successful and consistent musical performance all comes down to something called myelination. Myelination is a process where the brain reinforces neural pathways by wrapping them in a fatty layer, improving the speed and reliability of signal transmission. Think of it like upgrading an old copper wire to fiber optics. Once that circuit is insulated and optimized, signals travel smoothly from the brain to the muscles, ensuring precise and fast responses. With consistent practice, these pathways become more efficient, allowing actions to feel effortless and automatic. Once a connection is myelinated, it can transfer signals literally 10 times faster. Unmyelinated axon conduction velocities range from 0.5 to 10 meters per second, while myelinated axons conduct at velocities of up to 150 meters per second. That's the difference between driving from Los Angeles to New York in 40 hours versus making the same drive in 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is twice as fast as a commercial flight. Now, like we said before, just practicing fast often locks players into sloppy performances, while only creeping up the metronome leaves them stuck, never reaching full speed.
So if you are creeping up the metronome and not reaching your full speed, I would say you're doing something wrong. Because I creeped up the metronome, and I, you know, can break 20 notes a second on some stuff. Regularly hitting, you know, 15 notes a second on a lot of things. So creeping the metronome up absolutely can work if you do it right. So I don't know where he's going to go with that one. But yeah, you absolutely can creep up the metronome and make that work. I do it all the time. And that's why the student who requested I check this out wanted me to respond to this, because he has seen some serious results with doing the metronome work. Nascu, if you're still in here, you know, I believe he's seen some big time improvements doing the metronome stuff. Mr. Taylor has used the metronome method to get results. Joe, he's seeing results. Tristan, you and the whole training program stuff, imagine you've seen results too. In fact, well, yeah, you have. You told me that works well for you. Yeah, Placidon makes a great point here. Say Marty Friedman is amazing and has a crazy grip in how he picks. So yeah, like another example, like, you know, what the best picking thing is. Like, yeah, I very curious. I don't know about that. Yeah, there you go. Tristan says, and yep, Joe, yes. So they have used the creep the metronome up thing, but you have to keep pushing it faster. Anyway, let's continue.
Okay, but isn't it true that both slow and fast practices will build myelin? Because when we practice, the brain's going to wrap that connection and you'll get better, right? So if you just keep practicing, then eventually, inevitably, you should be able to reach your goal, right? Wrong. To get to the bottom of it, I asked Dr. Chris Lee, a neuroscientist and executive performance coach. Here's what he had to say.
Like there is myelination that occurs when we learn something new. So if we take like music, for example, and you've been doing like a progression wrong your entire life, right? So you have the trigger, and that trigger goes to this neuron over here, which is the behavior, and that's like small motor function. And the line between those two things is like the nerve fiber that's firing back and forth. And when the brain receives that message, it says, we do this thing, and it does that. And then eventually you get new self-awareness. And so from here to here, we go from here down here. And now this pathway is brand new. And that new pathway is not only going to require from here to here, but it requires here to here. And once it goes here, it goes, oh, wait a second, this is the new thing that we're going to try to do. But this pathway up here is faster. So we always think that it goes from 1 to 2, and then it goes from 1 to 3, but it goes 1, 2, 3, right? Because we have to go, oh, this new self-awareness and new self-awareness builds that new pathway. And that's the myelination pathway. And then eventually we have a process called extinction, and it'll, instead of going trigger, behavior, result, it'll go, oh, wait, new awareness is the fastest path. So instead of taking this long route, we'll just go not 1, 2, 3, we'll go 1, 3, 1, 3. And once you get to that 1, 3 moment, that is like what we would call like deep learning has occurred, because you've myelinated that pathway because you've used it so much.
So what does this mean for how we practice guitar? It means that there's a place for both slow practice and for fast practice, but you need to use them at the right time and in the right order and for the right duration. I call this stage 1, 2, and stage 3 practice. Now, before we can get into these steps, I have to give you a few general tips. First, don't practice with a gate on. A strong gate can really affect the articulation of notes and fool you into thinking you're playing a lot more accurately than you actually are. A gate should...
A gate? What, a noise gate? Usually the necessity to use a gate comes from gain which is too high. Well, that's interesting. He's talking about noise gates. Plastodon says, haven't done anything like it in a long time, but yes, using Metro definitely works. Absolutely. Nascu, yep. Just by doing sextuplets in increments of 2 is boosted speed with some things in an insane way. There you go. Nudged it up. Success! Fucking A. Who would have thought?
Should be used for clamping silence, not an apparent increase in accuracy. Once you're in the end stage of practicing, and only if the riff requires it, then sure, add the gate back in. But for now, keep it off. And one last major tip is to try practicing on a clean sound for about the first half of your practicing. This, again, helps to make sure that you're playing extremely accurately, but more importantly, playing with a consistent velocity. There's no...
Yeah, so the whole playing clean, practicing clean thing, that's something I'm still not in favor of. Like, a noise gate, I mean... I don't see how a noise gate's really going to get in the way either, because the noise gate is there to, you know, like when you stop playing, the noise gate kicks in to eliminate a bunch of feedback, a bunch of nonsense. Like when you're playing stuff, the noise gate is not going to eliminate poor muting technique. Like when you're playing, whatever is being produced is going to come through. So, maybe I'm just using it wrong. I don't know. But yeah, the whole noise gate thing there, I don't know about that. But, you know, whatever. That's fine. if you know, that works for him, great. I can't knock it, you know, on that one. But I don't see how it causes a problem. Because, again, when you're playing, like, stuff's going to come out. Like a noise gate. I've had some students using a noise gate on like amp sim stuff, and they have the gate on too high, so when they're doing like hammer-ons and pull-offs, because the signal going into their interface is not loud enough, the gate kills the sound. So they're better off having less of a noise gate on. I got a noise gate on just to, again, minimize feedback, you know, when I'm not playing. The whole playing clean, it's like if you want to get good with distortion, you want to play with distortion, I feel like you should be playing with distortion most of the time anyway, because you do need to learn how to mute things. Like, it's a little bit different, and a lot of times people will not hear muting technique issues when they're playing clean. So that's my preference. If you want to play with distortion and get good with distortion, you should be practicing with distortion on. Whatever sound you want to be using when you're playing for real, that's what you should be practicing with. That's my opinion. What the hell do I know? Plastodon says, well, unless the gate is set to like gent rhythmic styles, it will cut off notes so you'll think you're playing cleaner. I guess it depends on what you're playing then. Playing solo stuff, you wouldn't even have the gate set that high. Well, I could see that as a thing then. But that goes into the whole muting thing again, wouldn't it? At least I think it would. Like just trying to be very staccato. I think it would just make it more staccato sounding. But it wouldn't eliminate, strings bleeding through. Like if I'm playing up here, playing up here and you hear all that stuff bleeding through, that's not a noise gate issue. That's a muting issue. So that's why I'm like, I don't know about the noise gate thing. All right, let's continue.
Right or wrong answer on when exactly to switch over to your high gain sound. Just do it when you feel like it, but don't put a heavy compressor on the sound as well. A light compressor is fine because a wide open acoustic sound can be pretty dynamic. And personally, I like a little reverbs just so things don't sound completely dead. But you don't want to do anything that changes how the tone comes out too much. So
yeah, I'm all about using compression too. I think I'll use some super heavy compression for really pushing my legato speed in order to be able to do that. So it requires less effort to do so. I don't have an insane amount of compression on. It's quite a bit of compression for sure, but that's because I'm trying to make playing the crazy stuff as simple as possible. Make it as easy as possible. And look, when you're playing with heavy distortion, dynamics really aren't a thing. You're not going to be hearing low volume, high volume stuff the way you would on an acoustic guitar. You're just not. It's all pretty level. So where was it going with that? I read comments on YouTube. Now I threw off my train of thought. Plaston says you get what he's saying, but it doesn't make sense for teaching the shred right. And then Tristan strictly played death metal with a ton of palming and high BPM. So, yeah, that compression can help with that too, because, the faster you play, a lot of times you have to play very light, and allowing the compressor to push that out is very helpful. As I sometimes say, I'll put the super compressor on when I'm really trying to push legato things or even speed picking things. It's all right, I'm triggering my frets now. So, but compression can change the tone for sure. But yeah, anyway, now we're getting into sound design stuff, I guess. Now I'm being a nitpicky. See, this is why I said at the beginning, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but some people might think I sound like I'm being a jerk anyway.
With all that said, let's hop into the stages of practice. When one can play any section of a difficult piece in the required fast tempo, but fails to play the sections in continuity, it is clear that the real difficulty does not lie in the domain of pure motor activity. Rather, it is the inability to think fast enough to estimate the distances and to anticipate and prepare one's playing apparatus for each situation without the slightest delay. George Kochavitsky, The Art of Piano Playing, A Scientific Approach. So, during stage one, I want to accomplish two things. First, I want to make sure that I have the music completely memorized. Second, I want to make sure that I can get through a basic performance at a slow speed before adding a metronome. So I want to get continuity before I'm continuing. This is a lot deeper than just practice slow and the same advice that people have been giving out for ages. So let's talk about how to memorize music easily. And this will sort of happen as you play anyways, but don't skip this section. I'm going to go over a lot of cool tips. So what I'll do is I'll often print off the music, or I'll make a basic chart, and I'll do a lot of active listening. And during this, I'm breaking down the music into sections. Now, this is called chunking, and people have talked about chunking a lot. Again, there's little tweaks here that are going to really help you a lot. So chunking helps our brain take a lot of information and break it into smaller, easier to remember pieces. By organizing complex data into smaller units of data, we reduce the cognitive load and enhance our learning and memory. That means that instead of focusing on reading sheet music or tab, our full attention can go to where we're actually executing the music. I like to call this kind of chunking for memorization, or better yet, compression, because it's literally doing the exact same thing computers do when they make a file smaller. I want you to accomplish your compression in a way that makes sense to you. For me, I usually mark out A and B sections, and then maybe I'll mark out some subsections inside of that. Sometimes I'll use shape, or what I call keywords. And by analyzing the music, you might recognize that you're working with a certain chord progression. So rather than memorizing music note by note, you can memorize just a handful of chords, a key, and a few general shapes.
I feel like I better interject soon because don't want to be getting in trouble for not doing the fair use thing. Placidon says, obviously you have to know what you're going to play it fast. Well, yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with not getting the piece of music memorized prior to doing it with the metronome. It can certainly be helpful depending on what it is you're trying to do. Oftentimes, doing it with the metronome can help you get it memorized. So it doesn't have to be exclusive. I don't think so. You know, I've done it that way plenty of times. But yeah, it's all fine. Learn it in pieces. Do an active listening. That's a good thing too. I think it's going to depend on the situation, depends on the complexity of what it is you're trying to get down. So I think it could be quite varied. Deaf World, holy shit, where in the hell have you been? I saw you shared the post. I don't know why I couldn't respond to it. Maybe I'm just a ignorant old fool who doesn't know how to use Instagram anymore. Thank you, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, where the hell you been? Hey, you lost 15 pounds. Very good, sir. Very good. That's a good achievement. And how am I? I am just plugging away. Plugging away. How are you doing? All right, let's continue while answering comments in between stuff.
So let's take a look at the opening riff from Symphony X's Inferno.
Goodness gracious. Well, we can't see that too well here, but whatever.
If you listen to the song, I'd call the first 8 measures section A, and the next section in 5/4 section B. These are the 2 big sections. After that, we could roughly call that section the post-intro, or section C, since it doesn't really reappear in the song again. Next, I'm going to break down section A. We can see that measures 1, 2, 5, and 6 are the same minus 1 small shift here. If we want to get fancy, we could call this A and A prime, which is noted as A with an apostrophe after. And that leaves measures 3, 4, 7, and 8. 3 and 4 to go together, so I'm just going to treat that as one unit and call it B. 7 and 8 go together, so I'm just going to treat that as one unit and call it C. So in big section A, we have a very simple structure of A, B, A prime, C, or you can just think A, B, A, C, and remember that there's a little tweak on that second A, which is pretty easy to do. So to really drive this home, I'm going to quickly outline section B as well. Section B has the same structure, even though it has more notes in every measure. Notice that in our section B, part A has the same E flat, F, G walk up every single time.
I guess I can see how this applies to practicing for speed, but yeah, it seems like a different kind of topic at the moment, where it's just about his recommendation for memorizing music. But he did say memorizing what it is you're going to play is an important part to being able to play it fast. So, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, let's continue.
So I can take that pattern and put it in the back of my head. And the resulting analysis for this section is, again, A, B, A, C. So altogether, we have section A, B, A, C, and section B, B, A, C. Not too much to memorize really now, is it? Now I want to talk about what kind of mistakes are and aren't acceptable, because you are going to make some mistakes when you first start something new. And there are going to be mistakes that are kind of okay to make. And
okay. Now this looks like something good to read through. Deaf World, you said you needed a break from streams working on guitar. Metronome leads finally got back on your stable schedule. That's good. Burpees and cardio is what you're missing. Oof. Nasco, you got to go to sleep. 3. Oh, goddamn, that's late. Finally caught a stream. All right. Yeah. And if you ever have any videos you want me to do a reaction to, just let me know. But good to see you on the stream. I'll see you in your new videos. Okay, so an okay mistake. Perfect execution, but skipping to the wrong section. Bad mistake. Playing wrong notes, especially without awareness that you did. So, well, yeah, if you're not aware you played something wrong, that's a huge thing. And, yeah, that's going to get you. That's going to get you, and that's a big thing that some students have a hard time realizing, like when they are practicing. Like, they don't know when they did something wrong. And that's a bad thing. And that's hard to teach somebody that, to get that awareness. That's a tough one to teach. Anyway, let me not skip around so much. It's like, okay, the okay mistake, perfect execution, but skipping to the wrong section causes not enough practice, fixed by more run-throughs. A bad mistake is playing wrong notes, especially without awareness that you did so, causes memorization errors, technical facility is lacking, and fixed by stage 1 practice, no metronome, annotating the music. So, like when students will be working on even like the same 4 bars of something, they can play it just fine without the metronome. But after a certain speed, they don't realize that they're playing something wrong anymore. They just don't know. They don't know that something is wrong. A lot of times it's just rhythmic stuff that they're getting wrong. But nevertheless, they're getting something wrong and they don't know they're doing it wrong. So I think what he's saying there, at least in that text, is like it's a nuanced thing. You know, it doesn't solve it for everything, but maybe for some stuff. I guess he's just using it as an example. I mean, you can't cover everything in that sort of explanation. The okay mistake, though, perfect execution, but skipping to the wrong section. Oh, I see. That's more of a case of memorizing the music. I see what he means. Okay. Well, let's get back to it.
And those are what I call memory lapse mistakes, which generally get ironed out as you just play an individual section over and over again. And then there's places where you totally forget or where you inadvertently skip to the wrong section. When you make this kind of mistake, you need to pause, try and think about what section comes next, and then, and only then, look at the music. According to the Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, it's this kind of mental stretching that is proven to increase memory. Little memory lapse mistakes, practice like this, will generally iron themselves out of time, but the kind of mistakes that are not acceptable are playing completely wrong notes and also thinking wrong. You need to clean up your thinking. Now, I'm not expecting 100% accuracy every single time from your first run through. What I do expect is that you know the notes well enough to know where you made a mistake so that you can practice that mental stretching in that moment, pause, and correct it before it happens. That is what enhances the learning. Anytime you're hung up on remembering a particular note, put the training wheels back on and look at the music, go through it a few times, and then take those training wheels back off. Maybe you need to write in another keyword or a chord using a specific reminder like a drawing or a little triangle or some kind of diminished pattern or whatever reminds you of that section of music. Like I'll write words like icy, for example. You know, using a specific word, in my opinion, is far superior to just circling the note and writing remember or a bunch of exclamation points in the music like I used to do in grade school. So that covers compression, aka chunking for memorization. But now we need to talk about initially taking it to the instrument. So we have our notes in our head and we're gonna put it on the instrument. So this is still stage one. And what you're gonna do is start practicing without a metronome, making sure that you have complete clarity on where any of the rhythm shifts are, what the rhythms are, any weird finger patterns, what fingerings you're gonna use, etc. You might change some of these things as you go on, but you need to form a plan to get started. Like I was.
So I know this is like a 3-part video series he has planned. But this, right now, I don't know, it feels like it's more about, like, getting a song up to speed, not necessarily how to practice for speed. I feel like we've kind of shifted direction here a little bit. But he might be tying it together. He did say not all questions will be answered in this video. You got to watch the other 2 coming out. So, I don't know. I feel like things just kind of went a little bit different direction. And it's not necessarily about pure speed building, which is what I was expecting. Talk about pure speed building. Damn it. Deaf World, going back to school in January, decided to take a break off the semester for fall and focus on working out and guitar again for the next 3 months. Always good to take a break, shift gears for a bit. Trying to get to the 200s before January. Shit, dude, you got a couple months there. Good luck. Good luck. That's a lot of weight to lose in just a couple months. Well, yeah, like 2.5 months. Low 200s. Yeah. Low 200s. That sounds doable. Well, sounds like you're on the right track. Good. All right. Continuing.
Practicing riff from Pale Blue Dot the other day. I started going through it, and then when I started going through the second section, I was like, oh, okay, actually, that same finger pattern is down here, and I had to do a little bit of relearning, but because I'm always learning in this way, it ends up actually being kind of modular, and it's pretty easy to correct those kinds of things. So now, as you're running through things, whenever you make a mistake in any of these 3 stages, I always want you to do this. I want you to cue up that mistake as the one thing you're going to focus on in your next rep. It could be a string crossing that wasn't completely comfortable. It could be a fingering where you played the right note, but maybe you slid into it, or you were just right on the fret wire and it didn't come out quite right. Little things like that. And don't move on from this stage of practice until you're playing with a good flow. I'm going to say it again. Do not move on until you have a good flow. Otherwise, you're just going to encode those mistakes when you try to move to slow metronome practice.
So, but that's where, like, myself and students, like, a lot of times students will be trying to play something without the metronome, and I tell them, like, look, just put on the metronome to make sure you're not playing too fast for your own good, because that's what I see happen a lot of times. And the same thing for me is if you follow a metronome at a slow enough tempo, 60 beats per minute is what I recommend to start for damn near everything. then it can prevent you from playing faster than you should and doing more sloppy stuff. So I get what he's saying, like that can be a good thing. Again, it feels like it's a nuanced idea. It's going to differ from person to person, circumstance to circumstance, because some people will just continue to play without the metronome too fast for their own good, and they'll continue to do it wrong. Whereas if they put it to the metronome or put it in Guitar Pro and followed it at a very slow pace, making sure that it sounds correct at the slow thing, then they're playing it right at the really slow speed, and then they can start gradually pushing it faster and faster and faster. Because, some people... Yeah, I'm repeating myself now. Let's finish here. We only have, kind of less than 10 minutes. I don't think we're going to finish this video. We might have to finish it next week. Unless Matt sees this reaction. He's like, hey, take that down. I don't know. Hope he doesn't. Hi, Matt.
So now that you know what I'm doing, let's watch some of it in action, and I'll kind of narrate over the top of it. Stage 2, initial optimization of 50 to 80% speed. This is a stage where I'm going to add the metronome in, but there's a crucial distinction that makes this practice that I'm about to do different from other slow practice. Most people at this stage try to get perfect repetitions before increasing the speed whatsoever, but I actually don't care about perfect repetitions. I'm only looking for about 95% accurate repetitions, and I want to push the speed up very quickly. Remember what Dr. Chris said about the long path and the short path? If we spend too much time practicing slowly, we're just going to be training that long path, and our brain's going to go, oh, you should take this long path all the time, and what we really need to do is get our brain to prefer the short path. So if you do that long path, you're going to have a really hard time ever playing fast. That's why that happens. So that means if you built the ABC path in your brain to perfection, you're literally not going to use it anyways. It's a waste of time. Still, there's a problem. We have to cross the gap from our initial performance level to playing somewhat fast in the realm of 80 to 90%. And you'll see how this works in just a second. So our goal now is to take our rough performance and smooth it out and connect the different sections and technique shift. So we're getting initial performance, now we're connecting those sections. So once you do this, you'll likely be able to jump from around 40 to 60%, up to around 70 or 80%, or maybe a little more depending on the riff. Our goal at this stage is not to go fast. That's what stage 3 is for. So we're solely focused on ironing out any performance glitches. So just like in the last stage, any mistake you make, I want you to take it up and cue it up in your brain as the main thing to focus on for your next rep. Same process, but now with the metronome, which will force you to iron things out even more. So at this stage, we're going to start using a tool called the Speed Trainer, available in Guitar Pro. If you don't have Guitar Pro, I highly recommend it, and I'll leave a link for it below. So what the Speed Trainer does is it basically acts like a coach sitting right next to you, and every time you complete a rep, the coach increases the metronome just a little bit, forcing you to go a little faster. These increases in speed act somewhat like a timer, creating a sense of urgency for your brain. And I learned from Dr. Chris that that sense of urgency means better brain engagement and more deep learning. Now there's a big catch with the Speed Trainer. Most people don't know that you can customize the Guitar Pro Speed Trainer to do a custom speed increment and a custom number of repetitions. The default for the Speed Trainer is these massive 10% jumps with 1 extra repetition. So you go 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. That doesn't work. So these jumps are way too big.
I agree. Jumping up too fast, too soon is a bad idea.
And at this stage, we want to take the Speed Trainer and set it up for a 2% speed increase every 1 repetition. This specific setup will allow you to move through speed decently quickly, but not so quickly that you don't have time to correct small errors and think about them. And a lot of the small errors that you make, you can just kind of hit on the next rep. Typically, I set the starting percent.
Now, I guess if your goal is to get a song memorized, fair enough. But when you're trying to really push your speed maximally, you should be doing it with very small pieces of music. And no, 95% accuracy is not good enough. It needs to be 100% accurate if you're really trying to push your speed maximally. But again, this sounds more like song-based practice versus pure speed building stuff. You can't build pure raw speed maximally with a full song. It's got to be pretty short because you can only sprint for a short period of time. So same thing with playing stupidly fast. We're really almost out of time here. Yeah, I don't think we're not going to be able to finish this one, unfortunately. I can always check to see if my next student has said he can't make it, but no, that has not the case, so I am definitely going to have to go. Damn. I was really hoping to finish that. So, yeah, well, shit. Def roll, you're doing what you can. Burpees, cardio, lifting heavy is the key. Cardio and burpees 3 times a week. Weight strength 2 days a week. Keeping a low calorie count too. That'll definitely do it. What are you weighing your food now and meticulously counting everything? Joe, you're learning a song last month that is only 100 beats per minute and still started at 60 to make sure it's playing it correctly. It's not a fast song at all, but started at 60 still helped a ton. Good. Tristan says, I'll start with a comment which leads to my question. I've been practicing with your 16th note speed, changing strings up and down with the metronome. Well, good. Well, I guess, yeah, if you're going to get a question in, now's the time to do it, because we'll have to go here. Yeah, we'll have to finish this one next time, turn it into a part 2 thing. But what he's talking about here with the speed trainer, 100% agree. You do need to start. I don't know what he's going to recommend starting off with yet. I'd probably say it in a second. We're going to miss it, though. We'll have to finish this next week. But yeah, changing the speed trainer in Guitar Pro is a great thing to do. Set it to a very, just the small percentage increase. I think he said 2%. Hell, you can even do 1%. One time, so you play it correctly once, and then you bump it up a little bit. So having it just play through one time and then increase, fantastic idea. I'm fully on board with that. So I think overall, Matt and I have a very similar view on how to practice, how to get faster. Just think, the whole... feel like the video on this one anyway has not focused on pure raw speed building, and it seems more like a mix of that plus learning songs or complex music. But yeah, it's good information for the most, for a lot of it. Don't quite agree on, I would imagine, like what the perfect picking motion is, because I don't think that exists. I don't see how the noise gate thing is really an issue, nor do I see the need to practice clean. I think practicing with distortion is the way to go if you want to be good with playing with distortion. But anyway, yeah, good stuff. All right, let's try and answer this question here. Therefore, counting calories can be time consuming, but if you eat the same thing all the time, then you already know what you're eating. You don't have to keep counting. Tristan, your goal is 220 as the majority of the songs you wish to learn are 220. Should I stop at 220 or go higher? Well, if you can go higher, definitely go higher. You do have that as the goal speed. That's part of that training program. So, you could do it that way and try and hit the 220 mark before moving on to the next more challenging step. So how much higher? Well, if the song itself is 220, like when you're learning pieces of the song, I like to go like 10 or 20 beats per minute higher for a lot of things. But if it's 16th notes, maybe even just 5 or 10 higher, because if you're talking about 220. So if the song's at 220, getting individual pieces at 225 or 230 is probably plenty, because you're really in some stupidly fast playing, past 220. So how much higher? Just answered that one. As 220 at 16th notes is tough for new. Dude, 220 16th notes is tough for anybody. Not just noobs, but for fucking anyone. Also find around 130 BPM 16ths. Your picking mechanics needs to change. So yeah, that might be one of your awkward transition speed thing. So we all have that, where eventually you get to this speed where like maybe your wrist is no longer fast enough to keep going, so then your arm starts to kick in, so it's like a mix of the two, and then eventually it's all arm. It happens to all of us, which is another reason why it's great to practice with the metronome and slowly wrapping it up, so this way you can iron out those funky speeds. Plastodon, good to see you. See you next time. Hey, thank you everyone who came in and watched part 1 of this. So we'll be doing part 2 next week, unless I get in trouble. So we'll see. But Matt, if you're watching this and you made it to the end, I think we're really on the same page here. So good stuff. Your production's a hell of a lot better than mine. So yeah, there we go. This is the end of the stream. See you again next week.